He's a syndicated columnist and also an author. His latest book is called Son of a Gambler, Winners, Losers, and What to Do When You Win the Lottery. His name's Don McNay, and he's here with me in the studio. Don, good to see you.
Good to see you, Joe.
This is a pretty handsome volume of collections of stories. It's part memoir, part, I don't know, self-help book maybe, part collected stories. It's all kind of put together thematically. What was your idea with putting this book together? It seems like like three books in
it's
one.
Almost like a greatest hits sort of thing of various topics. And in fact, in the introduction, I talk about kind of like a concept album like Hotel California or something like that, where I use rock and roll lyrics as a lead-in to everything that I do, and or some type of popular music. And so it kind of, the theme goes back to a couple central points. My father was a professional gambler up in Newport in northern Kentucky, and so growing up in that environment was, not many people grow up in a gambling environment. I've never seen The Sopranos because I've never wanted to see what fiction was like when I had the real thing growing up right in front of me. But and I made a switch into what I guess financial advising as much as anything else, but I do something called structured settlements, where I work with injured people, and I work with lottery winners, people who get large amounts of money, and help them with their finances. That's my specialty, and so how those worlds collide is really what the book is about, and various topics. The part that gets the most attention, of course, the overwhelming amount of attention seems to be the first part of the book, which is about lottery winners.
Of course, everybody'd like to be a lottery winner, but there's also, a fair amount of stuff out there about when you win the lottery, it's not always the best thing in the world to happen to you.
90% of people who win the lottery will run through the money in 5 years or less. And I talk about this a lot in the book. I have examples of people, a couple of them from Kentucky, one in Ashland and one from Corbin, who ran through the money in a much smaller period of time, millions of dollars. I have a whole chapter about Jack Whitaker. We call him Powerball Jack Whitaker in Hurricane, West Virginia. He had $275 million that he won in 2002. By 2006, he said he was completely cleaned out. Jack had a horrible situation. His granddaughter died of a drug overdose. His daughter has died. His wife's left him. He did a lot of things, like he was robbed of $600,000 in cash at a strip club, and just everything. He's almost the poster child for what not to do when you win the money.
Do you find that people come out of the woodworks when you win a lottery, and they just hangers on, and maybe somebody knew you in grade school? Hey, by the way,
everything. And I'm working on another book now about big money in general, and it's not just about lottery winners, but it's also about athletes and entertainers and people of that sort. And athletes call it the posse. And
no doubt,
it's there's a term for it that actually Dave Baker, the sportscaster here in Lexington, gave me the term. And it's when people suddenly become professional athletes, every person who they've ever known since grade school wants to hang out with them. Well, the same thing happens to lottery winners. And my first piece of advice to anybody who wins the lottery is not to tell anybody. Seriously. And you don't have to have the big news conference. And every state has a way of shielding identity. Kentucky, it's a little harder to pull off than Ohio, for example. In Ohio, you don't have to come up as the winner. You can have the XYZ trust show up, and a bank trust officer show up to cash in your ticket, and that way nobody knows who you are, that you got the money. Now, your neighbors may suspect if you suddenly go from a small house to a multi-million-dollar house, but they may not be the lottery. Maybe you inherited it, maybe whatever. And because lottery winners are the most prone to going through the money, because these are people who on Friday didn't have any money, on Monday are multimillionaires. They don't have a plan for it. So if you inherit money, from the time you're a little kid, you're going to get it. If you earn it in a business, you're going to, you have an idea what to do with the money. But lottery winners, it just happens for overnight. They don't have their systems in place. And actually, that's the next thing I tell people is to get some system,
Yeah.
Before they cash the ticket, go out and find some advisors, have a plan, get your systems in place. And so,
Well, it sounds very simple, but you got to find somebody you trust. You can't just have anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, even somebody in your family may not necessarily be trustworthy because they may be thinking, well, how can I
actually
screw them out of some money?
If you go back to the athletes and entertainers, the worst thing you can do is have a family member running the show. My advice has always been to find someone who has worked with more money than what you have. If you get $100 million, I want you to have an advisor, and actually a team of advisors, not just one person, who has worked with $150 million at some point in their life. I don't want you to be the most important client they've ever had, because that usually means you're getting beyond their level of expertise. And there are people out there who work with large amounts of money, and you can find them. And what I always tell people to do is start with a lawyer. Go to their local attorneys, because a lot of things that come up right away, wills, trust, how you're going to, what's going to happen to the money if you die, whether to take it in a lump sum, whether to take it over time, a lot of legal questions. Your very first questions are legal questions. And to find a lawyer and who hopefully can refer you to other estate planning, trust attorneys, people that know what they're doing. And those people usually have a network that can get you to the right people. So
Don McNay is our guest. His book is Son of a Gambler, Winners, Losers, and What to Do When You Win the Lottery. And do you have examples in here of people who are doing it the right way as far as winning the lottery?
Yeah, I do. And there's a couple, in fact, two of the Ohio stories that I talk about, because here's always the funny thing about what I'm saying. Since I tell you to be quiet, if you're doing it right, nobody's going to know you're out there. But I talk about one in Amelia, Ohio, and got $161 million, and they did everything the way I wanted them to do it. They're anonymous. They had a bank trust officer pick up the money. They took the payments over 30 years, which is the other thing I stress very hard, not to take it in a lump sum. I used to try to do that just for tax reasons, although right now, since taxes are rising, really the tax strategy isn't as important as it used to be. But my thought is, if you get $100 million and you take it over 20 years, you're getting $5 million a year. If you blow through the $5 million, you get 19 more chances to get it right. And so you blow through the $100 million, that's it. You're not going to win the lottery again.
Yeah.
I don't know people who win the lottery twice. And the same thing with professional athletes, or you're not going to play in the NFL twice. And so you take your money in deferred payments, then you've got a better shot overall. And so people in Amelia did that. They set up a trust. They took it in deferred payments. Because of the people who came forward, they had a bank trust officer and a law firm, both who I knew, and I knew that was it. The fourth component that I always tell people to do is to give the money, part of the money, to charity, or have some kind of long-term plan. If you get $100 million, you've got a huge opportunity to make an impact on society, far more than the rest of us do, and a long-lasting impact on society. And if you go back to the people who had the great fortunes of the 20th century, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, people of that nature, they gave away all their money. They gave away most of their money before they died, but they gave away all their money at some point, other than just a small amount, because they didn't want their children to be completely warped and not feel like they had to earn money. And you look at Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they're doing the same thing now. And so they're taking the vast fortunes that they've accumulated and not just spend it in strip clubs or spend it on, on Cadillacs for all their friends or something like that. They're spending it on things that are trying to make a difference and trying to make a long-lasting difference in society. And that's what I tell people to do. Find a cause that you believe in and put the money to it.